Hello, I'm Igor Spirinov, International Grandmaster and a chess coach. Welcome into the second part of the lesson The Secrets of Strong Players. Before we begin, let me outline what kind of secrets are we talking about in this lesson. Nowadays, there is a wide variety of chess tutorials, and any decent chess player knows all the classical chess rules. For example, you're probably aware of all the common rules like develop pieces in an opening, put a rook on an open file, and standard tactical motifs like pin, fork, discovered attack, and any other common chess rules. Most of the chess players share this knowledge. Nevertheless, stronger players manage to gain victories, which means that they have some additional skills that they use in their games. In most of the cases, they do not share these practical techniques, even if they comment a game or write a book. And that's the point of this lesson. Here I will reveal some of the practical techniques that strong players use in their games. Let's take a look at this example. As usual, I invite you to be active and to think by yourself. In that case, you will indeed improve and develop necessary skills. This is a game between Moiseenko and Lupulescu, if I pronounce his surname properly. It was played a few days ago in the current European Championship, and now you can test yourself in this position. Even though it's still a theoretical position, let's leave the theory aside for a moment and just try to think by ourselves. So what do you think? How would you play here as white? There can be quite a lot of logical moves. White can castle to continue his development, or white can, let's say, push his a-pawn to a4 and a5 to get rid of his weak pawn and disturb his opponent. White can try to break through in the center with something like d5, or maybe white needs to neutralize that active knight on the e4 and take it straight away, or maybe play knight d2. Also, white can try to exploit the black's advanced pawns on the king side and play h4. As you can see, there are a lot of different options. And the same thing will happen in almost any position. Although we know the common chess rules, but in most of the cases, different factors work in single position, while you still need to find the best move somehow. Here's the rule that will simplify your situation a lot. Keep focus on attack. In order to find proper attacking moves, usually you need to focus your attention on opponent's half of the board and think how you can make attacking moves there. Let's try to apply this idea for this position. Which moves white can play on black's half of the board? Not much really. White can only play pawn to c5 or pawn to d5, and both of these options are fine. For example, if white plays d5, he is trying to break through the center, and white is threatening to take the knight, or to jump with his knight to d4, attacking lots of squares in black's position, and all in all it may give white a strong initiative. Alternatively, white can play c5, which is also an interesting idea, and it was played in this game. White also is trying to open a position to exploit his two bishops and black's weakened position. If black takes with the c-pawn, it will give the new open line for the white's rook, and white can play rook b1, maybe queen b3 in the future, and it gives white additional attacking possibilities. If black takes with the d-pawn, this will give a new e5 square for white's pieces, for white's bishop or for his knight, and then the knight can jump to g6 potentially in some variations, or white can play f3, pushing away black's knight. This diagonal will also be weak, and white can play bishop c4 or queen b3 in the future, or bishop b5, giving check. As you can see, white now has a lot of different attacking possibilities. Now let's make a few moves back. The main thing that we should notice here is that if you focus on opponent's half of the board and you keep focus on attacking moves, you will be able to find the right moves very easily. Okay, let's go back to the game. Here black played knight to d7. Now white took on to d6. That was the point of his previous move. White wants to open a position and create more weaknesses in black's pawn structure. Okay, in this position, if we try to play attacking moves on the black side, there are no options really. Well, white can move his bishop to b5, but there is no attack there. That's why white simply castled, and black replied h5. Now that's a new position when we need to think and to make the right decision. What do you think about it? What should be the white's move here? Again, white has a few options. Obviously, black is going to trap the bishop after h4, and white needs to do something about it. White can take, bishop takes e4, because it will eliminate a defender of the d6 pawn. So this is one option. Another option is that white can give an escape path for his bishop while playing h3 or maybe h4. Maybe white can play knight d2 as well, with the same purpose of getting rid of that knight on e4 and put attack on the d6 pawn. Therefore, we have a couple of options. Which one is the best? Again, we need to recollect the main rule. You should keep focus on attack. We don't want just to make a defensive move like h3. We want to make an attacking move. And with that in mind, white played h4. Because it's not only a defense for his bishop, but also white is going to attack black's pawns there on the king side. Once again, you can see that this simple idea of always keeping a focus on just one factor, on the attack, can simplify your game a lot. Okay, now, I'd like to tell you one more thing that is also very important to keep in mind and to follow while playing. A little time ago, we stated that attacking moves are the best. It means that you should try to play attacking moves by yourself, and at the same time, you need to prevent potential opponent's attack, because this can cause real danger for you. That's why before playing moves on the board, before playing the moves that you're going to play, you need to check potential attacking replies of your opponent. How do you do it? Very simple, you use exactly the same method of thinking. Let's try to think about this position from the side of black. How would black try to attack if he wants? He will use the same method. He will focus his attention on white's half of the board and will think which attacking moves he can play there. With that in mind, black has a few options. He can take on h4, maybe play g4. The knight can take on g3. Maybe black can push f4 as well, but it's probably bad because it will leave the e4 knight hanging and white can just take it. Thus, in total, we have three options: g4, g takes h4, and knight takes g3. These are the moves that black player will calculate and will try to play, if one of them works. Now, we're playing white, so you just need to think about these options before playing h4. So let's flip the board back to white side. If you're playing white, then before playing the move h4, you need to calculate those potential attacking replies of your opponent. In most of the cases, you can make such calculations very quickly. For example, obviously g takes h4 causes no danger for white, you just recapture, and it only helps you. Similarly, if black plays g4, obviously white can just remove his knight, and the position on the king side is closed. There is nothing black can do, and it's easy to detect that there is no danger here for white. We also need to calculate knight takes g3 move, pawn takes. Here, if black pushes g4, we have seen that situation already. It closes the position, there is no danger for white. Instead, black will probably try to open a position, so he can take on h4. And in addition to that, he can also take on f3. That's not the move on white's half of the board that black can do in order to eliminate a defender. of that h4 pawn, and after that he can win a pawn by g takes h4. So this is a line that you must calculate before playing h4. Here you need to evaluate this position and think whether it is dangerous for you or not. In this particular example, although black won a pawn, but he has no active pieces at all. He's trying to attack just with his pawns, while all his pieces are still on their initial positions. So I don't think it may be bad for white. Actually, it should be bad for black. White just needs to open up a position, playing like e4. Maybe white may even consider a sacrifice like bishop takes f5. A move in the style of Mikhail Tal. Something like that, and even such sacrifice may be dangerous for black, because then white is going to make checks, queen g6, queen e4, and attack black's weakened king. Of course, it requires additional calculation, but in any case, we can detect that this line should not be dangerous for white. After you made such calculations, you can come to a conclusion that you may play h4. But you see that it's important to make these calculations before playing this move, because otherwise you can overlook opponent's powerful attack and appear in huge troubles. And that's what happens very often with chess players. Now you know how to prevent it. Okay, let's move forward. In the game, black played queen to e7. This time white needs to think again to detect the best move. One of the obvious options is to take on g5, and that is a possible option indeed. In the game he chosen another option, he took on to e4, and it's important to state here that this is not a defensive move, that's an attacking move. White eliminates the defender of the g5 pawn, and on the next move he is going to capture it. That's why again you can see that white keeps focus on attack. That's the reason for the move bishop to e4. And that's why black has to recapture with a bishop, otherwise he will lose a pawn. White played queen to e2. Well, white has to do that because he needs to protect the knight, otherwise black will take the knight and will take on h4. That's why queen e2 is forced. Black replied g takes h4. Okay, now that's a question for you. White has two moves, knight takes h4 or bishop takes. Which move is better?